From the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased to have with me my friend Kianosh. He is the founder of Higher Aspirations. Kianosh, thank you very much for being with us today. Can you just let us a bit more about you and your company, what you do?
Well, thank you for having me, Mehmet. My name is Kianosh Pourian. I am the founder of Higher Aspirations. So I've been in the tech industry for about 25 years. I started out as a designer, moved to development, engineering, worked at Fortune 100 companies like Staples. Then I continued on to do some freelancing work. And at one point, I started my own custom software development company, which helped different companies build different products. And at one point, we expanded our reach from software to hardware development also. In 2017, I sold that. And in 2018, I exited out. And I've been in different places as VP of engineering. The reason I say all this is because, as you can see, I have been in different parts of technology, and throughout those different parts of technology the roles that I've played different roles in the hiring process. The hiring process, especially in the tech world, is very, what's the word I can use that is kind? It needs a lot of help. We're working. It's a subject matter expert area where people requires, in order to properly gauge somebody, you need to bring subject matter experts in there. And that's, for example, that's where I came in as the engineer. We would technically evaluate the candidates that came in. As I started growing my own company, I started creating hiring process for my company. As I was a VP of engineering at some companies, I helped with the hiring process as a hiring manager and played a conduit in between. And as a result of that, I have experienced different parts of the hiring process and started to get a better understanding of it and some of the issues that I saw and how to fix them. And that's what has inspired me to create Higher Aspirations. And to the work that we do is we're not a recruiting agency of any kind. We just go into companies and we help them assess their hiring process and help them improve. One of the hidden expenses in running a business is the amount of time and budget needed for the hiring of employees, whether it's you're replacing somebody that's left or you're trying to grow your company. One of the things that kind of affects companies is the amount of time that it takes to fill a position. The longer it takes, the more time that's taken away from the actual work and the more money is spent on there to build it. So what we try to do is we try to make the hiring process efficient, empathetic, and inclusive. That's our slogan. That's our motto. That's what we try to do. And we look at that at every aspect of the hiring process as we go through it.
Yeah, that's great to know. Kianosh, great also background being, in the tech for a long time as well. Now, I would like to, dissect this hiring process more, right? Um, so of course you have spotted some, I would say, trends or maybe some common problems, common pain points that led you to become a having this company and becoming a founder. So if we can just start where things get wrong, I mean, what do you think are the biggest pain points for companies? And maybe if we can, I know it's like maybe common, but focusing on maybe startups and tech companies, what are the pain points that they usually face?
Well, as I mentioned, what it is a hidden issue with most companies. And the reason I say it's a hidden issue is because everybody looks at hiring as a simplistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
There's an opening. Uh, the simplest approach has been, okay, there's an opening. Let's get a job description out there. Let's get a flow of resumes in. Let's interview. Let's fill the position. That's a very 10,000 foot view and very simplistic view of it. However, if not done properly, it can take a long time. It can put a huge toll on the people involved in the hiring process. And as a result of that, you'll see you won't see it outright issues, but you'll see symptoms of an issue that the hiring process is broken or needs some help. For example, when the job description is put out there, you'll get a flow of resumes coming in. If the higher percentage of your resumes are the type of resumes that don't fit the job description or don't seem to match what you're looking for, a lot of times companies don't know to look at the actual at the actual job description and see the flaws within the job description that's creating this flow of unusable and, for lack of a better word, inappropriate submissions into the process. You know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for a front end engineer to hire, for example. I need them, if it's a senior position, I need them to know certain things and at certain levels. If the job description doesn't encompass that, you're going to get front end engineers from different aspects applying for the job, and it's going to become a heavy burden on whoever is evaluating the resumes in order to filter the right ones in and take the wrong ones out. That's one symptom that we saw. The other one is transparency and communication being a huge issue. You'll see on LinkedIn, on Reddit, a lot of people, candidates, companies complaining about whether the candidates are ghosting them or the companies are ghosting the candidates. This is a simple communication issue that can be solved by having a communication plan within your hiring process. You have different stages of hiring, and each stage of hiring should have its own communication plan to go along with it. If I'm at the first stage of the hiring process, my resume is evaluated and it matches the job description, great. I should get a resume. I should get an email that says, "Hey, you're moving on to the next stage." Vice versa. If I don't fit it, then I should get an email that says, "I do not fit the position and we will not be moving forward to it." A lot of companies, because of the flow of amount of resumes that come in, choose not to communicate that aspect one way or the other, which, in my opinion, in the world of automation and application tracking systems that we have, there's no excuse not to make that communication and communicate back to candidates that way. So those are some of the things that we see as we go through. Um, a good example of a symptom of poor communication is if you look at the HR representative or the hiring manager, which is the point of contact between the company and the candidate. If you look at their email inboxes, you may see a plethora of emails saying from the candidate saying, "Hey, I'm checking in to see where
Yeah.
my status is on my application." In our humble opinion, there should be very few of those, if close to none. Right?
Right.
You should have communicated to the candidate where they stand, whether they're moving forward or not, and what to expect as they're moving forward.
And Kirosh, do you see this common like both where companies do internal hiring? I mean, they have their own talent acquisitions team. Um, and also, does it apply if they are utilizing maybe other company services to do this? Like, is it common between both?
Yes, yes. And those companies that have internal recruiters and external recruiters. So for example, one of the things that we recommend to our clients is that by building a proper hiring process, when you bring external recruiters in, which they become an extension of your hiring team, they should know your hiring process. And to have that properly set up, the
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure, the process in general, and be able to communicate that to an external recruiter to say, at this stage, we expect you to do this, that, and all that stuff. That is very important. One of the first things that we recommend to our clients when they have a job opening is to assemble the hiring team. In our opinion, the hiring team consists of an HR person, representative,
Mm-hmm.
hiring manager. Uh, if there's an internal recruiter or an external recruiter, that's included in the hire team. And then there's about 2 to 3 peer uh, interviewers. Those are the people that will be actually working with the person that will be hired. That's your hiring team. And what we do is we create a racing matrix for the hiring team that says, this is your responsibility at this time, and this is how we want you to work in this hiring process. When I was at a Fortune 100 company,
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed quite a few candidates. I never knew what our hiring process was. I never knew
Wow.
which part of the hiring process I fit in. The only thing I knew is when my manager would come in, either email me or literally drop off a resume and say, review this. You're going to interview this person on this day at this time. After doing that, I never knew what happened, what my feedback was, what the result of it was. It was very broken in my opinion. Now companies are doing a little bit better by bringing people in, but still there's some challenges in there that we think should be addressed and fixed.
Okay, that's yeah. It's like what I'm hearing. I hear it. You usually the feedback comes from candidates more. It's good to hear also what happens inside the company as well, because if you look out, you find the number of course, like, which is normal, number of candidates applying to a job. It's much more than the number of jobs available in the market, which is very common. Now, one thing I want to ask you and your opinion and what you are doing about it. So, one of the feedbacks we always hear about the hiring process is sometimes, other than not having a clarity on the process itself, but sometimes, it's a lengthy process. So, you have a screening and then you have first meeting or first call with a hiring manager, and then what what are you seeing in that area, and how you advise your clients to streamline that side?
Right. Right. So one of the things we don't go to a company, first of all, with a predisposed set of rules or
Mm-hmm.
how to do things. We have some standards that we follow, but we don't have a template that we go to a company and say, this is how you should do it. One of the first things that we do is we interview the company, we evaluate the company, we assess their hiring process. We get an understanding of what the company is all about, what their mission is, what their culture is all about. Then what we do after assessing their hiring process, we give them feedback, which is, here's what you're doing great. Here are the areas that you need to improve. Now, the follow-up to that is we can help you create a hiring process that will meet your needs. And each of these hiring process that we create is a unique hiring process for that company that matches their mission and their culture and their people. So we highly recommend that people take a look at their hiring process in general. Now, with that also comes how to evaluate a candidate and what their interview process should be all about. Some companies think the lengthier it is, the better, the more people involved, the better. We don't agree with that. We think you can evaluate a candidate in 2 or 3 interviews. You don't need much more than that. Now, again, if it's a certain position at a company that requires, if it's a more senior position, maybe a little bit more people, but I wouldn't go. I've seen some companies send back emails to people that say, okay, here's our hiring process. It includes seven different steps, home projects, one-way video interviews, screening, behavioral screening, all these different things. I think some of these are just basically more of a fluff. It doesn't. It's you really the best approach of evaluating candidate is one-on-one conversational type interview. And when I say conversational type, I'm moving away from interrogatory type of interviews where you ask a question and they answer. It should be more of a, I've looked at your interview. I was specifically interested in this one position that you did 2 years ago. You mentioned that you improved, you provided efficiency in the QA process. Can you talk to me a little bit more about, let's talk about that, because we have issues with our QA process, and I would love to know what your experience is like. Those are the type of questions that get people excited to talk about what the work that they've done, and you can easily evaluate that person, whether they know what they're talking about or not. Silly questions like, why do you want to work for our company? Or just clearly, when I go into interviews and that's the first question I'm asked, clearly it tells me 1 or 2 things. 1, they haven't read my resume. 2, they're not sure how to interview, because that type of question, why do you want to work for our company, is not a question you ask a candidate. In my humble opinion, why somebody wants to work for a company, it's the interviewer's responsibility to sell their company to the candidate and tell them why they should work for the company, right?
Yeah.
Me as the candidate, the cursory research that I would do on a company is I go to their website, fine, mission statements there, all that stuff. That's great. I can talk a little bit about that. I can talk to some, even if I know somebody with that company, they can give me some insights. That's great. But until you actually work at a place, you really don't know what's so attractive about that place to be able to cogently talk about it. But as an interviewer who has worked for the company X amount of years, they should be able to say, these are all the things that I love about my company. And that's why I think you as a qualified candidate should come work for us. Right.
Yeah.
So, I lost the question, but
No, you answered it actually, Kianosh. I want to add something here. What I believe is, uh, so there is a miseducation for people about how they should approach. I mean, if they are candidates, right? Now I know like you help companies who are hiring. I want to be like kind of on the other side, and if someone is listening or watching this, I believe the thing that you need to do, as you mentioned, like it's a long term relationship. Maybe you're gonna go work there for 5, 6, 7 years. We never know. So I believe the candidate needs to be also ready to ask and question. And if he gets such questions from the company, it will have a red flag. Hey, okay, what are these guys trying to do? As you said, like um, unfortunately, I would say, and maybe you would be able to change this with the work you are doing, and I can do it just by spreading knowledge. Like like if you have a talent, really, you don't need to show yourself also desperate. And if they ask you this question, oh, after 5 years I would be, I'm seeing myself as the upper,
right.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, um, you mentioned something about communication, Kinosh, which is very interesting. Now, like I wonder how, if I am in the place of a talent acquisition guy, who receives thousands maybe of messages, emails, LinkedIn, all these per day, how really this can be optimized? Like, do you think it should be, let me ask, so this is what will lead the question to, do you think, and especially in the tech industry and startups, do you think the approach should be going head hunting versus just opening job posts? I know that there are some legal aspects of it, I can understand this, but don't you think because we just have to put this job post, so we're gonna get thousands of people, versus like why we don't shortlist the people who we want to interview? Like I don't know, what do you think about this?
How you source your candidates, we're agnostic to that, honestly, because how you bring in the candidates is up to you. And you're right, there is a difference between passively posting your job description out there and hoping the right candidates apply for it versus actively going out there and looking at LinkedIn, Stack Overflow for tech, all that, GitHub, all these different avenues where you can look and see a person that may or may not be looking for a new position, but their experience matches what you're looking for, and actively pursuing them. That is up to the company. But going back to one of the things that you mentioned about communication, that's very important. What we when we for each, like I said, for each stage of the hiring process, we recommend that there should be a communication plan. Now, there's two groups in that communication plan that is important to be involved in it. One group is obviously the candidate. How are you going to communicate information back and forth to them, whether they're moving forward, whether they're not, all that stuff. The second group, and the most important group, and this is where a lot of companies fail, is the internal hiring team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Me as a internal hiring person, regardless of what position I am in that hiring team, I should know or have the ability to know where we are in the hiring process. So for example, as we're going further and further in the hiring process, not everybody has access to the ATS like the hiring manager and the HR person does. So what do we do there? One of our recommendations is that if you have a wiki of some kind, internal wiki, internal Confluence, anything like that, there should be a page devoted to this specific job opening, who the hiring team is, where are we in the hiring process for the job opening, how many candidates have we seen, let's look at a list of the resumes, everything that I, as a person who's on the hiring team, needs to know should be in there. We go even further and we recommend, hey, Joe, as you're going in and you are interviewing somebody, please take notes. And we put these notes up on these wiki pages for other members of the hiring team to take a look at, so they'll know what questions you've asked, so they don't repeat the same questions, and also what kind of answers they've gotten back, to see if they read the answer and they want, hey, I would love to know a little bit more about this answer that they gave here. I'm going to follow up on this with my during my interview. So those are the things that we think everybody should know. Me as an interviewer, I should know that candidate A that I liked, maybe my fellow guy that interviewed him didn't care for him too much. That's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's see how it is. So those are some of the things that we recommend as we're going through the communication. And along this line is another plan that kind of complements communication is documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Wiki page, the ATS, all that stuff becomes very important. I've seen a lot of companies post a job, go through the interviewing process, couldn't find anybody, so they repost the job again. So those are some of the things that the hiring team should know about. Hey, we went through 20 candidates, we didn't find anybody, we're going to post it again. Let's try it again. So these are some of the things that we recommend as we're going through that, and take it away from the simplistic approach that a lot of companies have, and put more of a structure around it so that people know where they are and how they can move forward.
Okay. So you advise also them on maybe some technologies that they need to acquire? Do you do that?
No, actually, we're very agnostic as far as technologies are concerned. We show them how the technology fits in their hiring process and where they should. So we have, for example, we don't go in there and say, you need to have Confluence because we need this. If you don't have Confluence or a wiki page, you have some sort of filing system somewhere, a hard drive somewhere where we can put a folder that says senior front-end engineer, put a date on it, and that's what we're hiring. Or you can put a document that says this is the hiring team, put another folder that says here's all the resumes we're getting. We're agnostic to the technology, but we're very opinionated when it comes to communication and documentation and where it should reside for the hiring team to be able to see. And the other thing is also, I think you have a lot of CTOs listening to this. I believe the CTOs should know their hiring process from start to finish. Right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of times that I've given presentations on this topic, and in a large group of people, I have asked the simple question, by a show of hand, how many of you CTOs know your hiring process? Well, you get a good 50% raising their hands, right? And then I further question them. Those of you that raise your hands, you know your hiring process from start to finish. Some hands go down. If you were put in the hiring process and said, go, how many of you would be able to do it without any help? More hands go down. So those are some of the things that I think CTOs and people at a higher level should know what their hiring process is, how long. They also should have uh, when it comes to technology, the some of the tools used will give you a lot of data in return. So those are important also, uh, to have data behind it. A CTO should know what the average time it takes to fill a position, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's somewhere between, let's say, 3 to 6 months to fill a position, is that normal or not?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, that's a long time to fill a position. Why is it taking so long? There's other data you can take a look at. For example, the quality of resumes that come in. If the data tells you that the quality of resumes are coming in is very low, then the question that the leaders should be asking is, why is it such? What is our job descriptions not good? What are we putting out there that is not giving us good talent out there? So the data gives you a lot of information that you can always go back to and see. Again, if the leader looks at the HR or the hiring manager whose point of contact looks at the email box and sees a lot of follow-up inquiries, let's talk about that. Why do we have so many follow-ups? Why do these people not know where they stand in the hiring process? Why do these candidates not know that when they're moving forward, their next interview is going to be next week with so-and-so?
Yeah. When I asked you about the technology, actually, Klosh, like I didn't mean that you mentioned a technology name by name, but I mean maybe very high level. And by the way, I like I would call, because myself, I use it as well, vendor agnostic, right? So when I go to a place and I see there are some maybe repetitive tasks, maybe I see, they are missing some solution. So when I go there, and let's say it's, just as simple as a file sharing solution, right? So when I go there, I don't give them the name of the solution, but I say, guys, I think you are missing this functionality, and I think you need to deploy a file sharing system. Or maybe sometime I go and see they don't have a CRM, and I say, guys, I see that you don't have a mechanism that you keep the communication and track the deal. So I think you need to deploy a CRM. And of course, I don't tell them you need to take this or this, but I like this approach as well. Um, Now, the question I want to ask you, like, do you see any differences when any, I would say, relativity between the size of the organization and the complexity of the hiring process, or is it something flat? You see it like same across the board?
Um, to be honest, it differs. But larger companies tend to make their hiring process a little bit too complex. And I don't want to put a blanket statement on there, but I have seen some companies who, like, you take a look at their hiring process and you question why. Why do we need so many steps? Why does it have to be uh, a panel interview with 6 people in that panel? To me, that seems redundant, overuse. So again, the simplest thing about hiring is just getting to know that person. Getting best way to get to know the person. You've been to parties, you've talked in a group of people. You can get to know people within a 5 to 7 people group that you're talking to, but you'll get to know that person much better when you're talking one-on-one. You can ask personal questions, right?
Yeah.
So the more people are put in there, I think it kind of diminishes. The other thing is also, again, this goes back to one of the things that you mentioned, teaching people how to ask questions or what questions to ask. And even so, one of the recommendations that we have is, before you put your job description out there, there's a level of pre-planning that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
First step, assemble your hiring team. Once that is assembled, you set the roles and responsibilities and all that jazz. Then you need to start when you establish your interview process, you at that point, or even down the line, you can say, okay, Joe, you're going to be interviewing this person, and let's find out how technically savvy they are, and let's look at what type of culture they're looking for. And in order to find out what kind of total culture they're more comfortable with, let's ask the questions, right? Let's ask the question of, how do you like code reviews done? How do you prefer pair programming or not? We do pair programming. Do you prefer programming or not? So you can get an understanding of the person and how they work by doing that. One of the things that we've done in the past, or recommended in the past, and it's kind of radical, is that when you're evaluating somebody behaviorally, culturally, technically, all those things, try to emulate day-to-day activities as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, for example, when we used to do in-person interviews more prevalently than we're doing it now, when we used to do in-person interviews, one of the things that I would recommend to hiring managers is, instead of putting somebody in a conference room, sitting there all by themselves, that little glass of water, waiting for the next person to come in, why don't you just take them, you hiring manager, take them into your office, like you're having a conversation with an actual employee of yours. Just have that conversation in a relaxed environment. This is what it's going to look like. You sit with me and we do that. As you pass it off to the next person, whether they have an office or not, fine. They can go sit in a cafe somewhere, or you can have that person walk them around, show them. I interviewed for the Boston Globe one time, and they were very generous, and they gave me a tour. The manager gave me a tour. Here's what we do. Here's all the different parts. And it was very exciting. And it actually got me very pumped up about being part of that company. So little things like that help you progress the process a little further and make people more comfortable. That emulating the day-to-day, one of the things that I implemented in my company when I was growing it was that we would bring the candidate in and we would have a mock stand up with them. So we would say, hey, and we would actually assign them something. We would assign them a computer. We wouldn't give them assignment of a day-to-day work that we do. We would assign them a challenge of some kind. Like, here's a code. Why don't you go fix it for us? It has this problem. And as they were working on it, we would have people go with them, kind of talk to them, ask them questions, or allow them to ask them some questions. So basically, we did the day-to-day, and their code was actually reviewed, and then at the end of the day, they would have to explain their code to us, what their thought process was. And we didn't expect a solution at the end of it. We just what we wanted to see is A, how they work, and B, how they interacted with us.
Mm-hmm.
And we learned quite a bit from people just in that day. I know everybody's during the interviews are on their best behavior, but as far as technical assessment was concerned, we learned quite a bit in how they like to work, how they look at code reviews, how they respond to code reviews. If we would have somebody when they were code reviewing, they would blatantly say something that was right as label it as wrong, and to see how they would respond in time. Right, how the candidate would respond. So that way we would kind of get an understanding of, okay, if they disagree with something, how are they communicating their disagreement? So those were some of the things that we would do in order to evaluate somebody. So,
Beautiful. I like it actually, and I wish that everyone does the same. Now, this doesn't matter if it's a technical role or maybe even a sales marketing role. I think it's quite common. Only maybe the jargon would be different. So maybe with a programmer, you talk about codes and fixing, while maybe in sales it's about like how you approach customers. But yeah, I think if they do it this way, oh man, I wish that this is applied everywhere, because everyone's life will be much easier. As we are close to the end, it's like just your thoughts, and I'm not mentioning this because it's a hot topic, but do you think like technologies like AI can streamline this process also down the road? Because you mentioned one thing. You said like maybe if someone takes a note and then like pass it to the other guy, right? So do you think AI can be helpful here?
well, if you think about it, we've had an extension of AI a little bit in some of these behavioral tests that we have out there,
Mm-hmm.
like predictive index and things like that, where you answer a few questions and it kind of puts you in a certain category of some kind, that tells you, okay, you like to interact with people in a social manner, or you like to interact with people more in written manner, and things like that. So it's been around, and I think AI at the infancy that it is right now is at best is going to give you those same results. Um, there also, I mentioned some companies have one-way interviews, which if we kind of say AI is an extension of that, which you're basically not talking to a person, you're talking to a machine of some kind. Um, I don't think it's very popular right now, but maybe down the line in the evaluation part of it, in the data that we put in, again, you mentioned the example of somebody having notes and things like that. So maybe at some point, the whole note taking, the whole documentation process goes through an AI evaluation, which at the end spits out the top 3 candidates and tells you, hey, these are based on the answers that they've given you that you've documented. We think these 3 people are the best, and here's why. Right? Maybe AI can do that part of it, but I feel like interviewing and hiring is much of a personal process that requires human interaction. That I don't know. I can't wrap my head around AI doing some of that work, taking some of that burden off. But
Yeah, fair enough.
maybe I don't know as much about AI as I thought I would know. But
Yeah, that's fair enough. Kianosh, I have a very famous last question. Is there anything you wished I asked you, and how you answered it?
well, I guess the question would be like why people need our service,
Yes.
which is I think it's with the pandemic happening and the great resignation that resulted from that. Hiring has changed quite a bit in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, just the remote work aspect of it right now is still in flux. You see job postings up there that say are remote, but then you read further down and it says you have to be on site 2 or 3 days a week. Well, that's not remote, right? So our definitions of hybrid, remote, on site differs from one job description to another. So to have uniformity would be great. And to have the ability to kind of think beforehand, pre-plan beforehand of how you're going to do your hiring, what you're going to do moving forward is important. And I think the reevaluation of your hiring process, not to see what you're doing wrong, but to see what you can do better. You and I, we've been in the business long enough to know that we don't know everything,
Right.
and that there every day I'm surprised at somebody coming and showing me something that I did not know. And don't look at us coming in as a criticism of your current process, but more of show us where we can improve.
Yeah.
Because right now, I think in the market now, there's a lot of people looking. The companies are getting inundated and getting a lot of resumes coming in, and they feel overwhelmed. We sincerely believe if you just take a step back, reevaluate the hiring process, take a look at it, and look where you can improve it, you will take away a lot of the stress and the burden that comes with the overflow that's coming your way.
Mhm.
Take advantage of technology to communicate back, to communicate with your team, all those things. It's just matter of taking a self-inflicted, self, what's the word I'm looking for? Not self-inflicting, but introspective. Take an
Mhm.
introspective look into your own process and do that. And if you need our help, give us a call. We would love to help out. But if you get a chance to look at your process introspectively, it would be great to improve. Because honestly, I've been on Reddit and LinkedIn. You'll see there's a lot of people who are frustrated with the hiring process, and it's affecting them mentally.
Right.
Depression and anxiety is increasing quite a bit, and a lot of it has to do with not knowing where they stand. A simple email of, nobody likes a rejection email, but at least having that closure of, okay, I'm not considered here, I need to move on, goes a long way to help with the mental health issues that are happening nowadays, as opposed to not communicating, not letting them know, and dragging them around for like 2 or 3 weeks until finally giving them an answer is not helpful to anybody. So if I can recommend out there, please reevaluate the hiring process, because it's hurting the people out there who are looking for a job mentally, and it's having them. If we don't see it now, we will see it in the future, the effect that it has on people.
Yeah. Where they can find more, Kianosh, about you and your company?
My company, Higher Aspirations, it's higher-aspirations.com. We're on LinkedIn. We have our own site. If you find us, please reach out. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Sure, I will make sure to put that in the episode description.
I appreciate
Just on a final note on what you mentioned, and here, if you allow me to put my final 2 sentences, I agree with you, Kinosh, because back in the days, I was, a candidate for many companies, right? And 100% agree with you. I prefer 100 times to get a rejection email at that time rather than keep chasing and I don't want to say other word, but like running after the hiring manager or the HR guy or whoever he is or she is. I respected always the companies that used to send email, maybe 1 week after I submit a resume saying, "Hey, okay, we appreciate, your efforts. You send us your resume. You're not qualified. Okay, bum, it's out of my head. Let's go and move to something else." I appreciate these companies. Now, on the other part, like once if you get the phase one and then they disappear, in my opinion, this is a red flag. It's a huge red flag because that means these guys internally, if they are doing this with you as a candidate, who knows how they deal internally. You never know, right? So this is why I agree with you on this and on the mental health issues, because unfortunately I've seen I'm more active on LinkedIn, and I've seen, really heartbreaking posts from people who you can feel how, stressed they are, how sad they are. Yeah, and we are all humans, guys. Like, like even if you are a hiring manager, even you are working for the number one company, not only Forbes 100 company, this guy who applied to you or she applied to you, they deserve from you transparency. I would call it transparency at least.
Yeah.
So this is my 2 cents on this. And because we target in the show startups and businesses and CTOs, my ask, if you allow me, please be more transparent. Transparency, actually, it will give for you, the respect of the people, and this is what you need, because once you build your respect as a company and as a person, believe me, you will become a magnet. People will say, hey, these guys are honest guys, they are transparent, they know what they are doing. So this is my final thing. Well, thank you very much, Kinosh. I really enjoyed our conversation today. And for everyone, if you have a question or feedback about this episode or the show in general, don't hesitate to reach out to me. You know how to find me now: email, LinkedIn, and Twitter, mainly LinkedIn. And if you are interested to be like Kinosh today as a guest, don't hesitate. Please, the door is open for everyone. You have something to say, you have some new concept, you have some new idea, you are a new startup founder. The door is open for everyone. You have an interesting story. It doesn't have to be related to technology. I know the CTO show, but because we cover multiple topics and we want to spread knowledge as much as possible and inspire people. And, as I say always, thank you very much for tuning in, and we will meet again in a new episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.